we hadn't reached a point in our evolution to where we can handle the nature of what to do with fire.
Regard, and he was there when they were making these programmable generated life forms. He's biologically altered.
You see, let's say your tumour is a lot like, if you've got a lump in your body, it's a bit like having a lump in your engine of your car. And we do the same thing. We go to the expert, the surgeon or the mechanic, and we say, look, I've got a lump, please can you fix it? So the car mechanic looks for the lump and he finds it. It's red and glowing and looks pretty nasty, and it's on the dashboard. It's the red warning light, and he takes the red warning light out and says, right, you're cured, your car is fixed, the lump will be fine now. The doctors also find the red light, the big glowing red light, it's called a tumour, and they cut it out, and they say you're cured now. Now in both cases, obviously, the red light, the tumour wasn't the problem, there was a reason for the body creating the tumour in the first place, but doctors don't look at that. It's just, we assume, it's called the National Health Service here in England, we assume that doctors know about health, that they've studied health. We assume they know about minerals and vitamins and nutrition. Obviously, we're made of food. What you eat is what you are. I mean, imagine, like Gano was saying this morning, that there are these demigods. Now, let's say the demigods come down to Earth, and there aren't humans. Now, they decide to build a baby out of raw materials on this desk here. Now they've got a pile of raw materials they could choose. They could choose the freshest mountain strawberries with the dew still on them, the ones that you can smell from 100 yards away, they're so delicious. They could choose the finest salads, the most wonderful nuts and mushrooms and fruits and vegetables, and you could build this human baby, first one ever, out of these materials. Or on the other hand, we could choose hot dogs, McDonald's, chewing gum, Coca-Cola, and all those materials. So which is going to make the better baby? It's pretty obvious, right? So even if we go out to the supermarket and buy the best organic food they've got, it's still not going to be any good. Back in 1939, the American government, there was a report to Congress about nutrition. And back in 1939 in America, they were saying already the soils have been so depleted that no man can get enough nutrition from food these days. And that was 1939. And if you look at the figures of how minerals, for instance, have dropped in the average carrot, in the average whatever it is you want to look at, every year there's less and less and less nutrition because the cycle of the soil was broken some time back. And what happened was that our ancestors, and it doesn't matter what country you come from, our ancestors had the same routine. They'd get some wood, they'd make a fire, they'd take the food, whatever it was, and we used to be hunter-gatherers, which sort of implies that we hunted things, and they'd cook the food, and then they'd take the wood ash and they'd sprinkle it back on the garden. This is just, it doesn't matter what society you go to, this is how it used to happen. So the trees would do the mining, they'd send all their roots down hundreds of feet and bring up all the minerals, because minerals aren't evenly distributed on the land, they're in stratas, and like raspberry ripple ice cream, And so the trees would do the mining, and then we would take those minerals that they've mined and put them back in the soil so the plants would take up the goodness from those minerals, and round it would go. But of course with gas ovens and electric ovens and so on, that cycle just ended. But nevertheless, things still went on sort of okay. They used to burn the stubble and the wheat, for instance, and have at least put the minerals back in the soil again. But then, unfortunately, they banned that. So now they have to sort of do other things with the wheat. But that was annoying, having wheat that was 5 foot tall, so they dwarfed it. So now wheat is below your knees, so there isn't so much mess to clear up. But each year with chemical farming, the microbes, the little tiny elements that are in the soil and the worms and everything just disappear, and there are no minerals left. So the majority of the food you're buying, it really is almost devoid of minerals in any real nutritional sense. And so you've got to remember that we're self-repairing, right? Look at animals, birds, fish, animals in the wild. A school of fish, they're all moving at exactly the same speed, right? You can't tell the old from the young, the one that's about to give birth, because in the wild, we wouldn't have got ill. This idea that cancer is normal, heart attacks are normal, in our old age arthritis, a mobility scooter is normal, is a total fiction. But children these days believe that's normal. They believe that getting ill and getting infirm as we get old is normal. It's not. It's not at all normal. It didn't used to happen. The government will tell you, we're living twice as long these days. We're living, we used to die at 45, and now we're living till 90 or 80 or 70, whatever it is. But of course this is a complete fiction, because what they're doing is they're taking all the child deaths, because a lot of women would die in childbirth, a lot of children would die before they discovered sanitation. But if you go to any graveyard, you'll see that people live to 80 and 90 regularly. So what the government do is they put the child deaths together with the old people and say we only live till 45. But it's a farce. It's not true. Doctors, how much do they know about health? Well, nothing, as we discussed. They don't study at medical. There's not one day at medical school they do health. Most doctors do half a day on nutrition, minerals and vitamins. We think, when we go and have a blood test, and they look at the results in a very studious manner and go, ooh, we think they know what they're looking at. But they don't. They've got a crib sheet in front of them. Here's what the levels should be, here's what your patient's got, good or bad, They've never studied minerals, you see. I talked to a doctor who's just going to take her exams in 6 weeks' time. I said, what do you know about magnesium? She said, nothing. I said, they're talking nothing about magnesium? I said, nothing. And that's really interesting and really telling, because magnesium, I just thought I had in my pocket, but I don't. Magnesium is the most important mineral there is. It's number one in terms of minerals. Our blood has iron at the centre of it. The hemoglobin has iron at the centre. The blood of a plant, the chlorophyll, has magnesium at the centre, otherwise it's exactly the same. And so there are a lot of people who are missing out on magnesium. It should be in salt. Real salt is damp and grey coloured, but they bleach it, that white stuff you get. The table salt, the free-running stuff, that's really, really poisonous. The sea salt you get that's dry and white, we think that's dried sea, but it's not. Dried sea is grey and wet, and tastes completely different, and has huge health properties. It's like eating ordinary sea salt, the white stuff, is like drinking skimmed homogenized milk. It's only partially there, and all the magnesium's gone, because magnesium attracts water to itself. So they take the magnesium out of salt, make it dry. They've taken the magnesium out of most foods just by modern farming methods. Back in 1931, a French doctor who'd been working in Egypt noticed, or reported to the French Medical Association, whatever it was called, that Egyptians only got 1/10 of the cancer rate of Europeans. But if you took an Egyptian and you moved them to Egypt, within a few years, you took an Egyptian, moved them to Europe, within a few years they got the same cancer rate as Europeans. And by 1931 he'd figured it out. It was the high magnesium in the soil leading to high magnesium in the vegetables that was completely stopping their cancer. Now, let's say somebody's got constipation, which is what's killing a lot of people. Constipation is killing a lot of people. Imagine, you should have a bowel movement at least once, but probably twice or 3 times a day. A lot of people think 3 times a day would be normal. It's about a fast transit time. You don't want it rotting in your intestines or in your colon. What happens is, imagine that there's some people who only have a bowel movement every 2 days. Some people only have a bowel movement every 3 days or longer. So just think about the feces there for a moment. I'm sorry about this. But imagine you took those out. They're rotting inside. It's hot in there. You put them on your hand and you wrapped it up in a bandage to recreate what the colon is like. And you left it there for 2 days. Now you take it off. What's the skin on your hand going to be like? It's going to be ruined. It's going to be ghastly. It's going to be all cut up and nasty. And it explains why people with constipation are likely to get IBS or Crohn's disease or colon cancer or rectal cancer. It's so simple as to why a lot of these bowel diseases happen. This is a lot of people. And a lot of people are dying unnecessarily. Everything that they say is a disease, they've told you the disease probably isn't. Diabetes type 2, that's not a disease. It's bad eating. You can you can recover completely from type 2 diabetes in 30 days. Easy. Just eat more sensibly. Fibromyalgia, ME, chronic fatigue, are those diseases? No. That's bad eating and toxicity. What about arthritis? Bad eating and toxicity. It's not a disease. Osteoporosis, is that a disease? No. No. That's lack of magnesium, amongst other things. See, we all believe this stuff that we've been told. Oh, you've got osteoporosis or a bone problem, you need more calcium. No, it's the opposite. Very, very, very rarely do they need more calcium. They say, if you're arthritic, oh, you need more calcium, maybe. Now, I got so arthritic when I got ill 28 years ago after being poisoned by doctors' drugs that I had like calcifications sticking out on all my joints. I looked terrible. And 3 weeks in hospital, the doctor said, oh, well, the only thing we can do is operate and give you drugs. It turned out I was low on magnesium. I was low on some minerals and vitamins. I'd been eating stupidly. That was all it was. And you see, let's say you went to the doctor and say, let's say they say you've got cancer. Now, and you say, well, why has it happened? Why have I got this cancer? And they'll say, oh, genes, these things just happen, you're getting old, bad luck. Why does it happen, doctor? We don't know. But in 1931, well, the magnesium part of the story got told. Also in 1931, the Nobel Prize got won by Dr. Otto Warburg for showing the mechanism about how if you take a normal healthy cell, and you make the conditions now in the body a bit acidic, and you deprive it of enough oxygen to survive, that ordinary cell becomes a cancer cell. So back in 1931, they knew the mechanism. They knew at least one of the triggers. Now we know that sunshine is a big trigger. In the northern latitudes, there's massive cancer compared to near the tropics where there's very, very little. They've done loads of research with vitamin D, which is the hormone you get from sunshine. It's called a vitamin, but they discovered later it was a hormone. And so the people with the highest vitamin D in their blood, compared to those with the lowest vitamin D, people with the highest have, depending on which research you're looking at, 60% less cancer, 70% less cancer, more. So we've got magnesium, which stops you getting cancer. We've got vitamin D that stops you getting cancer. What else stops you getting cancer? Well, eating well. Ditch the grains, don't eat too much fruit, don't drink fruit juice very often. Try and stay away from the sweet stuff because they also know that cancer eats glucose. It changes from aerobic, using oxygen to live, to burning glucose. And so if you feed yourself lots of carbohydrates, which turn to sugars, you eat lots of sweet stuff, you're going to have problems conceivably with cancer, candida, the opportunistic fungus. We need candida in our body. Fungus has the universal thing that it cleans up dead tissue or dead anything. Tree dies, fungus comes and eats the tree stump. And so for the bits that are in you that are dead, you might have a fungal overgrowth. How do you know if you've got a fungal overgrowth? Stick your tongue out. If you've got a white coating, that's a fungal overgrowth. If you've got a fungal toenail, it's fungal overgrowth going on. You need probiotics. You see, this time of year in winter, our ancestors would have eaten fermented foods. They would have salted away all the foods to last them through winter. Because in Birmingham 200 years ago, it was so cold that you couldn't stick a fork in the ground. There just weren't fruits and vegetables for a very long time. It was too cold. All the seasons just cycle. So I want to run through now what to do. I could talk about the problem for ages. Let's talk about what to do to get yourself really healthy. The first thing to understand is that you're self-repairing. Right? If you're fit and healthy and you cut your finger, tomorrow morning it's going to be fixed. all gone, all healed up. If you're under the weather, you haven't been looking after yourself properly, it might take a few days to heal up. If you really haven't been looking after yourself, and your death, say, it might go septic. It might never heal up. So what about your teeth? What if you've got, let's call that cut a cavity. Let's say you've got a cavity in your tooth. What do? Run to the dentist and get a filling? Well, what if you treated it like your finger? Okay? Now with your finger, you get in that cut, you're not going to pour hot drinks in it or Coca-Cola. You're not going to get a sandwich and mush it in. You're going to leave it alone and it'll get better. We know that. So what if your teeth are just like your nails, just like your skin, regrowing all the time, and you were to take the same course of action? Maybe you might take a few healing herbs that would make your mouth antiseptic. Maybe you might decide to give food a break for a couple of days and not pour nasty things in the wound. What if you did that? Would your cavity just heal up and regrow as a perfect tooth? Well, might. Particularly if you've got enough vitamins and minerals and so on, and vitamin D. If you're eating right, you can repair a cavity. It's not the end of the world. If you've got a big cavity in your nail, would you have it filled with metal? I don't think so. And that metal they do the fillings with, that's half mercury. 49% mercury, I think the average filling is. Now, is that a good thing? Well, mercury is really poisonous. Can you get rid of mercury? Some people are reasonably good at getting mercury. A lot of people can't, like autistic children. They can't get the mercury out very easily. Can you get mercury out? Easy. You can get mercury out quite easy if you know how to do it. You can take sulfur, something called MSM, monosulfonomethane or something like that. MSM, organic sulfur. That will not only, if it's good quality, dissolve scar tissues, but it will sulfate heavy metals. Let's say you've got lead, mercury, whatever the heavy metal is stuck in your cells, your body can't get rid of it. Put sulfur in, sulfur and mercury, for instance, combined make mercury sulfate. And all the sulfates, copper sulfate, whatever it is, they're all water soluble. So now you can pee out the heavy metals. Is there sulfur in food these days? Hardly any. Hardly any. You need to take it as a supplement. Now, why would your teeth have a cavity? Well, if you're low on minerals, and when teeth grow, the dentists call it remineralization of teeth. If you're low on minerals, how can your teeth grow properly? Well, they can't. If you're low on vitamins, your teeth can't grow properly. And the doctors say, have more calcium, but that's not going to help. Very unlikely to help. Does brushing your teeth help now? You look at old photographs of old cultures. The head of the American Dental Association went photographing newly discovered cultures. All had big, wide mouths, big smiles, perfect teeth. They never brush their teeth. Perfect teeth then. So we need minerals. How are we going to get them? Well, obviously good food would be great if the minerals were there, and unless that soil is perfect and hasn't had chemicals at some point in it, it's hard to get good food. All food should be organic if you possibly afford it, particularly the animal products, because they're feeding the animal products in this country genetically modified foods, usually soya. Now, you feed an animal soya, it's not going to do well. It's going to be ill, might need some antibiotics or whatever. Even if you buy organic meat, chicken, eggs, cheese, milk, whatever, they'll still be feeding them soya. Even if it's organic soya, they'll be feeding the chickens soya. Chickens don't eat soya. They don't. Chickens get really fairly unwell, and you get unwell eating the products from there. Same with cows. Cows used to be in fields. They used to eat grass and things. Actually, they're forest dwellers. They'd eat everything. They're omnivores as far as vegetables are concerned. They put them on a starvation diet of grass, which they can cope with that. But now they're in factories. You don't see nearly so many cows in fields. They put them in factories. Pigs are in factories. They can't even get up and move around. They're lying down for their entire lives. You eat that food, it's not going to be doing you much good on an energetic level, let alone a physical level. So you need to supplement with minerals. You just have to. There are two types of minerals that are worth considering. A really good multi-mineral, and usually they come combined with a multivitamin, and then you need the trace elements, which usually aren't in multi-minerals. The trace elements are best found not from rocks, ground up rocks, which cheap supplements can be, but from plants. Here is a bottle of what's called fulvic minerals. Fulvic minerals are in all soil everywhere, but there are deposits around the world that are incredibly rich. first time I tried this stuff, I woke up the next morning and I felt 10 years younger. And I'm not exaggerating. My body went from being like normal to feeling really nice to be in. The first person of all my clients and friends who I gave it to was pregnant. She reported back to me in 3 days, that her morning sickness had stopped. So I'm not saying this cures morning sickness, but in her case, she was obviously low on a mineral, which this provided her with, and suddenly her body could cope normally. Because morning sickness is not normal. Babies vomiting over your shoulder is not normal. This is all not normal. So fulvic minerals are very inexpensive, very easy to take, just put them in water. It has to be water with no chlorine and no fluoride. And many people find they get more energy. That's the most commonly reported factor. But it's these minerals, these trace elements that are really, really missing from food these days. So this makes a big difference. Another thing that makes a big difference is iodine. This is iodine, Lugol's iodine. Now, let me run through the symptoms of what it's like to be low on iodine. Symptoms might be dry skin, might be dry elbows in particular. It might be that if you're older, that your eyebrows are thinning at the edges. It may be that you have cold hands and feet. You might be the sort of person who needs to wear socks in bed. You might find you walk into a room and can't remember why you walked in. That's a pretty common iodine deficiency symptom. You might have a special place where you put your keys, because otherwise you wouldn't know where they were. If you're the sort of person who doesn't know where their car keys are, that's probably an iodine deficiency. If you've got a thyroid issue, hypothyroid, hyperthyroid, you've probably got an iodine deficiency. How many people have got an iodine deficiency? I would say 95% of people, probably. That number, maybe more. So what happens if you get a lot of iodine? The Japanese get a lot of iodine. They eat loads of seaweed, lots of fish, loads of iodine in that. Japanese women at menopause, 10% of them report hot flushes. In England at menopause, 90% of women report hot flushes. Japanese women have much less breast cancer than English women. It's the iodine. So now we've got magnesium, vitamin C, iodine, all of them directly anti-cancer. Right? The magnesium I was talking to you about, a pregnant woman who gets preeclampsia, where they're sort of in a cramp and they can't give birth because of the cramp. What do they do in the emergency room when that happens? They inject them with magnesium. Somebody has a heart attack or a stroke. What do they do in the emergency room? They inject them with magnesium, intravenous. Epsom salts, magnesium sulfate usually. And they'll come round. In most cases, the preeclampsia will stop because the magnesium is the great relaxant. Okay? The heart attacks will stop because if you've got a cramp of your heart muscle, that's a heart attack. Magnesium releases cramps. So if you're getting leg cramps, foot cramps, menstrual cramps, you need to have a cramp. Magnesium is what you're missing. That's what the constipation cure is, to release. Calcium makes your muscles contract. Magnesium allows them to relax and release. So if you're tense, you're anxious, that's a symptom of magnesium deficiency. You need magnesium. If you've got heart problems, have had a stroke, very, very likely you've got a magnesium deficiency going on. If you have muscle cramps, restless leg, all that, magnesium deficiency. How quickly does magnesium work if you rubbed it in through the skin as a liquid? You're having a muscle cramp, 1 minute, 2 minutes, it'll be gone. And if you rub magnesium or take magnesium orally regularly, you'll never have a muscle cramp ever again in your life. And a muscle cramp of your leg, or restless leg, or twitches around the eyes, it's all magnesium deficiency, and it's all a warning of a heart attack or a stroke. Because if you've got a muscle cramp, not in your leg this time, but in your heart, that's a heart attack. Now, should you be supplementing with fulvic minerals, magnesium, and iodine? You bet your bottom dollar. If a woman gives birth to a child and the woman is low on magnesium, how will that affect the child? They'll have a low IQ. They will have a low IQ. If the woman is chronically low on iodine, what will happen? There's a medical term for it, it's called cretinism. The child is born a cretin, mentally defective. That's how important iodine is. Iodine is about your hormones. Iodine makes your hormones run properly. It's so important. How much does it cost? Pennies. Pennies. Do doctors know about it? 100 years ago, if you went to the GP and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with you, chances are they give you iodine as their first port of call. As let's try iodine because that usually works type of thing. What else do you need to know to save your life and get well? You need to know that everything they give you a vaccine for, doesn't matter whether it's smallpox, tetanus, anthrax, measles, mumps, scarlet fever, pneumonia, TB, any virus can be overcome with vitamin C in large doses, any virus. Now, how long have they known this? Since the 1940s they first started working this one out. Dr. Klenner, Dr. Cathcart, Linus Pauling, various of these very esteemed scientists and doctors worked out that if you hook somebody up intravenously to a vitamin C drip, and you put in like a bag of sugar of vitamin C and like 200 grams, 50 grams, 100 grams, 200 grams, intravenous every 24 hours, all those diseases I mentioned would end, right? Measles, whatever it was, they'll just end. Everything that they claimed vaccines have worked for in the past was a lie. They lied to you. You see, the nature of infectious disease is it comes, it peaks and it goes. Comes and peaks and it goes. Look at the older people here will remember the frightening venereal diseases of the past. Gonorrhea and syphilis, right? Those are the big ones that and we were told, we were led to believe that we should be very frightened of these venereal diseases. Where are they now? Disappeared. Is it because vaccines wipe them out? No. It's like any virus. It comes, it peaks, and then it disappears and drops away. So you go to the doctor's office right now, and there'll be a little pamphlet in there saying, it's the flu season, get vaccinated. Okay, let's take them at their word. There's a flu season. That means, what, flu comes out at winter, it doesn't like the warm weather, so it hides behind the skirting boards in the summer and comes out in the winter. Well, what about the people who get flu or colds in summer? How is there a flu season? There isn't. What there is a lack of sunshine season. Why do people get colds and flus? Mainly when the sun drops down in the winter, it's because they run out of vitamin D. When I discovered that vitamin D, vitamin C and zinc were what was going to keep you pretty healthy, I haven't had a cold for a decade, haven't had a flu. Why would you get any of those things if you know the rules? And the rules are terribly simple. Get sunshine. The doctors lied. They said sunshine is bad for you, you might get skin cancer. Burning is bad for you. Burning might give you skin cancer. Put sun creams on. That little baby, cover it from the sun. And then they wonder why babies are getting rickets these days. Autism didn't used to happen at all. Now it's 1 in 50 children. It's vaccines primarily that have been doing it. Can you reverse autism? Yes, you can, in many cases. If you look at the work of Kerry Rivera, she is reversing autistic children completely, getting them completely out of autism. If you look at GC-MAF, this is something that's made in your livers. You've got 2/1000th of a gram in you if you're healthy. If you're unhealthy, you may not have any at all. You give GC-MAF to autistic children, 25% of them stop being autistic. Right? 80% are positively affected. Do they teach us the doctors? No, they don't. Is it criminal? Yes, it is. Can you cure autism with a material called sodium chloride? Well, according to a number of doctors, and it's not me saying, I'm not saying there are cures for anything, that would be illegal. What I'm saying is the doctors are saying there are, and proving it. Dr. Kerry Rivera and others are using this material called sodium chloride in various different forms. Sometimes they call it CDS. CDS is one of the latest versions. And it's important to know that you can get your health back really pretty much no matter what. Now, I'm getting the wind-up signal because there are more people who need to speak. I am going to be here, and I'll apparently we have to vacate the other room where the exhibition is at 5, so I've moved my stuff, and I might just set up shop right outside here, and if people want to buy any of the bits and pieces that I sell, they're very welcome to, and that would pay for my trip up here. If anybody wants a consultation with me, because I'm a practitioner, you are very welcome to meet with me outside. I'm staying over tonight in Birmingham, and I'm available tonight and tomorrow to give consultations if anybody wants one, because there's no point in being ill. You may have family you want to bring, consider bringing them. So my name is Clive de Carle. If you want to see more of my stuff, I have a lot of stuff on YouTube. If you put in Clive de Carle or The Health Revolution onto YouTube, there's lots of interviews with the people I think, doctors and health specialists who are the best in the world, the ones that are doing serious work like reversing blindness, because there's not much you can't reverse.
Clive, can you mention your website as well? Which you've got a beautiful website, definitely worth clicking on. So if you go away and you digest this information, because it's quite shocking stuff. Do a bit of homework and look at Clive's site, and you'll see that all the products that he's selling here now are available, aren't they, through your website?
They're all on the website.
Yeah.
The website is called ancientpurity.com, and I've got another one called healthgenius.uk, and that's not meant to be a reflection of me, but what you're going to be if you come on one of our workshops. Healthgenius.uk has the workshop details. And if anybody wants me to give a talk and can get a decent audience, I'm always happy to give talks. And I do Skype consultations and phone consultations and all that. So thank you very much.